Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard, but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. We're only at 29. You guys know the face cam rule of 100 over here. And make sure that you guys subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. That way you can use the live chat. And make sure if you are subscribed, hit that bell so you never miss another stream, another video. Make sure when you hit the bell, you put all notifications as well. That's kind of why some people are not able to get all notifications. So either way, we have a little bit to talk about because of the New York City primary that has been going on for the mayoral election. We did not stream the results. Personally, I was not expecting it to be an upset. I think we would have streamed it if we did. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about this ceasefire. Did I tell you so or did I not? Not trying to do too much of a victory lap here. But, you know, there are little spatterings here and there, and people will just jump on me and say, no, it's not even a ceasefire. It's negotiated. If people actually listen to what I said, they'd understand that, you know, there would have been a 12 to 24-hour period anyways of a wind-down time. And like I said, ceasefires are made to be broken. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it buys time for some sort of deal to be struck, and we'll take it from there. And also 2026 updates, that's going to be crucial as well because there's so much that's going on. And really, it's like not that far away. Primaries will be taking place in about 8 or 9 months from now. So we're closer to the first primaries, or just about the same time, than we were to the last presidential election. So we have to get all of this in order. We got to talk about it. But first, before let's check the like count. We're only at 44, guys. Hit that like button. I know it's a different time slot than a lot of people are used to, but hit that like button so we can get the face cam on. But I will address the moderator situation from the previous stream very briefly. Seems like one of our moderators was having a little bit of an off night. I apologize for any stress he inflicted on the loyal viewer base here, of which there are many. That's not how I conduct business. That's not how I do things. I do believe in second chances. This is the United States of America. However, I've informed our team that if they mess around like that again in any capacity, any format, that wrench will be taken away for quite some time, because it is true. The wrench it's power. It's great responsibility. It enhances the viewer experience if you have moderators that are doing their job properly. Sometimes we don't have enough that are in chat. Sometimes we have too many that step on each other's heels. Sometimes they do a little bit of trolling, and we want to minimize the trolling. Having fun is one thing, but what I saw the other night does not represent how I conduct things on this channel. So everybody hit that like button. We're 30 likes away. We've got a lot to get into. There's so much on the way. And I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions as well that relate to this, that relate to other things, and you could send them in via Super Chat. We have a goal, 10 yellow Super Chats or above, that's $9.99 or above, as we had in the previous stream. We hit it. Will we hit it tonight? We'll see. We'll find out. And if you want a Super Chat less than that, that's more than welcome to. We'll answer all questions via Super Chat, but we're not going to read regular chat if we don't hit our goal, and that's perfectly fine. So we're 20 likes away from the face cam. You guys got 175 people. You guys got to carry some weight here. But we'll talk about a lot of what's going on. We've got Scott Brown running for Senate, as I expected. Elise Stefanik very likely to go for governor. in New York. Can she win? Well, I think after last night, the odds are much higher. I will say that, and definitely the New York City results. That's what everybody's talking about. You have J.D. Vance going on Blue Sky, trolling the liberals on their own platform, which is basically Liberal Truth Social, even though I think it's more comparable to like a Parler or one of those like failed networks back in the day, and it's just awful, and this guy literally just trolled the Democrats. Congratulations on your new leader. And that's kind of the position the Democrats are in right now. And we'll get to it. We'll get to it when we get 4 more likes. 4 more. I don't think I'm asking for too much. It's the way it's been. So we will get there. We're 2 away now. Okay. We're 2 away. But like I said, I mean, this is going to be a tough fight for the general election. Now you have all kinds of developments. And there we go. We hit it, 106. I think so many people, they would like it, but they want to be the 100th like. So they wait, they hold out. I respect it. I respect the hustle, but it does hold things up a bit here. But nevertheless, here we go. We're back. And New York City is maybe not so back as it stands today, because you do have this mayoral primary. And Zohran Mamdani, Zohran, we just call him Zohran because his name is kind of tough to pronounce, and he goes by Zohran because, it kind of sounds cool. And he understands marketing. He is not a stupid person. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's talking about. AOC is a stupid person, in my opinion. I think everybody can agree. She's a low IQ individual. Zohran, this guy, you're dealing with something here that's a little bit different because he understands politics. He understands how to win, and he did. And I guess there's credit where due in that, despite the fact that his policies themselves are destructive and are awful, and there's a chance he may not even win the general. But, the main takeaway is that you have somebody who runs this upstart campaign, and he capitalizes on the energy in a lot of these, Democrats who would show up for a primary like this. He did very well, not necessarily among most minority voters, although it is true in Queens, where you have a heavy Pakistani Muslim population. They turned out for him like there was no tomorrow. He won Queens. I think he won Queens by the most out of any borough. He won it by 7. So actually Brooklyn, he did better, which is interesting there. But Brad Lander did take some votes away from Cuomo, despite the fact that I think that they're going to rank Zohran second, which is crazy. That's why he's basically won. That's why Cuomo has come out and said that he concedes, although he may run as an independent, which is going to make things very interesting. Come general election time, if he runs as an independent, you're going to have Eric Adams, because the current mayor is Eric Adams, and then you have Andrew Cuomo, who's in the race as well as an independent, and then you have Zohran, and then you have Curtis Sliwa, who's not going to step out of the race, which honestly, it does seem as if you could make the case that he would. My gut feeling at first was like, Eric Adams should step down, and maybe we could have Sliwa as mayor. The only problem is he's not really viewed that favorably, even among some Republicans in the state. They don't view him as like I guess you would say, very not like a fake conservative guy, but they view him as kind of a gimmicky character. And he's not as pro-Trump as a lot of people would think. In fact, he has a lot of anti-Trump statements, and they were like, Trump was like cracking down on the gang he was in the 1980s, from what I hear. So you have this big mess on the Democrat side, because this is kind of, and it very much sums it up. You have a very corrupt guy, because I'm not, there's no, sympathy for Andrew Cuomo. I don't know who the hell thought it was a good idea to allow him to run for mayor, to prop him up, to give him money. This guy's a clown. Eric Adams is, at least rhetorically, he'll understand. I think he will work with Donald Trump, even if it's for a pardon. That's the way politics works. I'm not entirely happy about that. Oh, he's corrupt. They're all corrupt. Okay, let's be honest. Eric Adams is corrupt. But if he's willing to become MAGA and work with Trump for a pardon, who am I going to say no to that? Because that means that New York is going to benefit overall from it, and the city's going to benefit overall from it. I mean, people will, take this accelerationist mindset, and I kind of sympathize with both for different reasons. Because yes, Zohran as mayor could cause New York City Metro to just completely wake up for once in their lives. The state already, the Democrat margin of victory was cut in half If it moves that much again, it's a toss-up. The state is a toss-up. And if you're talking about somebody like a J.D. Vance getting 40-some% of the vote in New York City proper, that means that you're talking about a Republican possible victory in New York come 2028. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but is it possible? Yes. Zohran is not somebody that's going to resonate with the electorate at large. There's a reason why you have Democrat representatives in Congress who are probably looking at their internal polling data and they're saying something's up. Something is not going too well. With Laura Guillen, I believe it is, her seat possibly could flip. Trump lost it narrowly, but it's trending red. And even a lot of these experts are saying in the election mafia that that's like a toss-up district, lean Democrat at most. She's coming out and saying, no, Zohran does not have my support for mayor, even in a general election, because that is how radical this guy is viewed by a lot of people. And it makes sense. Now, a lot of young voters, millennials, the millennial, rising, portion of the electorate. Because in 2016, Bernie Sanders, the only reason why he got so close was because of the fact that he was running against somebody like Hillary Clinton. And you could make the case that this is similar because Cuomo is so unpopular, despite the fact that I probably have I have more favorable view of him than I have of Hillary Clinton, but also you had an electorate that the millennials were not a big portion of. Now they're the meat of the Democrat base. You have some like boomer Dems as well, but they're also like the hippie boomer Dems. They're more likely to sympathize with some of these characters. The minority voters, like the black voters, they back Cuomo big time. Maybe not as much in the younger generations, but in like the older generations, yeah, Cuomo's winning black boomers like 90-10, if not like 80-20, somewhere in that range. Hispanics, it's more of an age divide. Zohran did fine. He did better than expected with them. Asian, Zohran did very well, but Asian can mean a lot of things. Is it Asians like Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, or is it Asian like Indian, Pakistani, Bengali? Because it was mainly the latter. And there's a surprising amount of Muslims in New York City. I was shocked to find out, because usually you think of like Dearborn as like there's more Muslims there than ever. It's like there's more Arabs there. There's a lot of Arab Christians in Dearborn as well, by the way. They don't get talked about a lot. And other Middle Eastern or Middle Eastern adjacent groups. There's plenty of those ethnic individuals that live in that part of Wayne County, Michigan. But Queens, yeah, there's a Chinese community, and the younger Asians are more likely to vote, and they tend to be more far left if they're registered Democrats, and they were backing Zohran. But also you have mass migration. It's what it does. I mean, you have 9% of New York City is now Muslim. Somewhere in that whereabout, you're going to elect a Muslim mayor. Now, it's funny because you have a lot of people that will say he's going to put Sharia law into place. And it's like the reality is the guy supports the opposite of Sharia law. Like, you could say what you want about Sharia law. You don't have transgender operations for children unless you're like talking about like the niche, like Iranian form of like, oh, if you're gay, we believe God made a mistake and we'll make you a woman. That's a very strange form of transgenderism that is practiced in certain parts of the Middle East. But usually when people think of Sharia law, they think of like super strict conservative. This guy's a liberal. He's a liberal. He's far left even. You could look at his policies. They're very destructive, in my opinion. When you look at it from the economic side of things. Also, I think the social side of things is even worse, because when you talk about, and maybe he's not going to abolish the police department, but when you have this in your mindset, that's what you want to do. And they're sweeping this citywide council offices, these so-called progressives. They're progressing the country off a cliff. You have this guy wants to abolish prison. How are you going to have a society if you want to abolish prisons? People will say, well, they'll replace them with social work. It's not going to work. Do these people seriously think that you can change like a mass murderer? You can't do it. Or like a serial rapist. It's very unlikely that a lot of these people can be rehabilitated. If somebody can be rehabilitated, yeah, they should be rehabilitated, of course. But a lot of these people can't. And they reoffend and they reoffend and they reoffend. Also, abolish medical bills, which sounds good, doesn't work. For the record, abolish private health insurance. People like their plan. You're going to put them all on a government plan. And we'll have some people, and I think there's probably about a good 10% of my audience that probably would support some form of universal health care. I would support a form of universal health care if it would work. I think we need to expand coverage to as many people as feasibly possible while still providing the highest caliber of care. And you look at other governments like, oh, well, Sweden does this, Norway does this. It's Sweden and Norway. You are talking about the United States government that cannot even deliver mail properly. I mean, that's the DMV. That's your healthcare. That's your hospital under like the Bernie Sanders mindset, whether you like it or not. Now, I don't think he's going to be able to do that, even when it's been brought up in places like Vermont. It failed miserably. Vermont, like Bernie Sanders' home state, the land of it's an anomaly for sure. Banning all guns, again, legalizing prostitution, which again, compared to some of these other ones, that one doesn't seem as like affecting society as much as the others. Safe injection sites, so like basically wants to decriminalize like heroin, ending cash bail, and this is probably, in my opinion, the most egregious because this one can happen, ending all cooperation with ICE. So the Biden administration dumps how many millions of illegal aliens in this country by one way or another, and now you have them, it's not just along the border. There's probably more in New York City by far than any city down here in the state of Texas. But still, it doesn't exactly matter. These people don't want to cooperate with ICE. They toss common sense in the garbage can, and they expect to be rewarded for it. You're far left. They're far left on literally everything. Like the Trump is not far right in many facets. He's in many ways on economics. I don't think he's far right. On social policy, I don't think he's far right. I think he's a nationalist, so they call him far right. But there's nothing inherently wrong with that. So many people like to make that a dirty word for one reason or another. And a lot of other countries have it, but the United States of America, no, they're not allowed to for some reason. So we'll see how the general election goes because Cuomo might run as an independent. And then you have Eric Adams, who's an independent. Then you have Curtis Sliwa. If he drops out and Cuomo doesn't run as an independent because his name will be on the ballot, but he's not campaigning. He says he might campaign, but he's not going to take his name off the ballot. Who knows what's going to happen there? But we do know that you have this mayoral election where the far left candidate is favored. Yes, I do think Eric Adams, if the others drop out or don't run, would be able to defeat him. But, we'll have to see. We'll have to see at the end of the day if that's going to be the case. This is going to be one of the most closely watched elections ahead of November. And I think it could have positive impact in New Jersey because you have a mayoral race in a major media market that covers half of New Jersey. And you have the far left candidate that's going to be spamming ads, and ads will be spammed against him. And that will have some sort of effect. You could even see this. There is a Joe Biden 2020 voting, Doug Mastriano governor voting, despite the discrepancy being off by like 17 points or so, state house district in certain parts of northeastern Pennsylvania in the New York City media market where Josh Shapiro did not spend any ads because of the Lee Zeldin effect. It's spilled over because those were the ads people were getting, and Mastriano didn't even really underperform Trump in Pike County and other parts of the New York City media market by a lot. And I think Dr. Oz actually did even better there. So when you look at something like that, you have this mayoral race that could possibly have a ripple effect, the Zohran effect. The Democrats are the party of Reddit now. They don't have to answer as much to the black voters in South Carolina like they did in 2020, where you had Clyburn endorse Biden that saved and resurrected his campaign. They'll have to go through the South, but there's less of an emphasis because the younger black voters are not as democratic. They're still democratic, but they're not as democratic. As for the Hispanic vote, the Democrat Hispanics, I've predicted this for a while. Republicans are not going to be able to win 80% of the Hispanic vote. They'll win they could win it outright, but the Democrat Hispanics are going to be very far left, and the Republican Hispanics are going to be very right wing as well. So when you look at something like that, you have the main core of the Democratic base. It's white boomers, white millennials, and yes, there's minority voters. But it's kind of where the millennials are carrying more weight than like the 2016 electorate. And the Democrat base is getting, surprisingly, it's actually getting whiter as the country's gotten less for one reason or another when you look at the data. And obviously some of these groups that they've been bringing in lately, like Pakistani voters in New York City, those voters are voting for, unsurprisingly, the guy named Zohran Mamdani. And he was able to supercharge turnout among them, among like young far left voters, and he won. And also, we can't ignore Cuomo is awful. This guy is a clown. He had the best possible opponent ever, and he won in ranked choice. I don't know what the final margin's going to be, but still, he won in ranked choice. And now you have the city of New York, the state of New York. It's a problem they're going to have to deal with. It really is something that could end up, maybe you could say, in the long run helping us. In the short term, it definitely hurts the city of New York for sure, because you have this guy who, he knows what he's doing. I don't think he's a dumb guy, but when it comes to the policy, they're awful. And he's selling people on these policies. They're just eating it up. They're voting for it. We'll see if it backfires, like it's backfired every other place in America where you have this happening, whether it's Chicago with Brandon Johnson or certain parts of, the country and other places. New York is a total disaster already because of these center, I don't even want to say center left Democrats, but the corporate establishment Democrats. The far left is going to be even more unhinged, especially when it comes down to something like crime. And that's the way these things have gone lately. So we will definitely cover this in the super chats, but I did want to move on to the next topic of the evening, which does relate around the foreign policy aspects of the Trump administration and a lot of the panic and criticism just falling flat on its face. Because you have the ceasefire deal now. And I was told that Donald Trump was bringing us into a war with Iran, and that we were, I guess, told a lie that he was anti-war, which is not technically something that's inherently true. He's anti-endless wars. He's actually expressed, and I support this, by the way, a lot of sentiment into going to war with the cartels in Mexico, which I actually think you could make a case for, because I don't think it would be too difficult to take them out. If we spent a fraction of the energy we spent in the Middle East, I think we would take them out, and that definitely would benefit Mexico. It would benefit America, most importantly, because you wouldn't have these, drug kingpins bringing in their drugs as easily as they do now. So that would be an America First war. You could make the case, and we could benefit off of that, and we could have a better society as a result. But when it comes down to this, endless conflict in the Middle East, we don't want it. But also, it is true, we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And if we could manage to take out their nuclear facilities without causing a new war in the Middle East, then I don't understand who in their right mind would say that that's not a victory. And obviously, it's not done yet. But what we do know is there is a ceasefire. Donald Trump said this. He announced a ceasefire, and so many people didn't read the fine print, but you have 12 hours for the ceasefire to end for one side, another 12 for the other. Iran still struck something. Israel struck them back. And Donald Trump said, hey, he's like, they both don't know what the F they're doing. We'll say F for monetization purposes. But that is exactly what he said. And it was just a great moment from Trump, honestly. It's also a middle finger to the people, factions of the terminally online right, the R-word right, that think that Donald Trump is some puppet of Benjamin Netanyahu. He likes Netanyahu. He gets along with Netanyahu. He put out a Truth Social post glazing Netanyahu yesterday even, but it was mainly, buttering him up in a way I feel like for negotiation purposes as well, because he's saying, the deep state exists in America. It exists in Israel. They're out to get him with these fake charges, which Trump can sympathize with because it literally happened here to him not too long ago, and he was more popular as a result. But what Donald Trump is trying to do is exactly what I said he was trying to do a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, when it comes to foreign policy. You have a guy who does not want to get America bogged down into regime change wars. He put out that one post that was, again, a troll because he came out the next day and said, no, there's no regime change. But he likes to bait people. He baits the panicans. It was funny. It makes the life on social media a little bit more hectic for somebody like me, a lot of people like us, but it's entertainment for him. He doesn't have to deal with X, but it was entertaining. It was. But you have so many people that say, look, here's proof. This is proof. We have the proof that Donald Trump wants war with Iran. He wants a regime change war. And you're not going to get that. There probably will be a regime change at some point because the Ayatollah is like older than Biden, although he's more mentally intact and probably more physically healthy. But when it comes down to this whole ordeal with, Donald Trump and Iran, he's not going to get involved here. He wants to take out their capabilities, which he's talked about for a decade now. He's been in politics for more than a decade. So he took out the nuclear facilities to a large degree, and there's no nuclear deal in place. And you do have a lot of bad faith warmongers like Lindsey Graham, Mark Levin on the right wing that I think would love nothing more than just to go in and topple the Ayatollah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a Lindsey Graham guy. I think Mark Levin's a smart guy, but when it comes to foreign policy, he's a warmonger. He's been his entire career. So, and Graham as well, and a lot of other people in Congress. The old, everyone's seen the meme, the Holden blood feast. He's like 114 years old in the Senate. And it's one of the things was like, wants to just nuke Iran one more time before I die. Because you have like these old senators that have been there forever. And it's a funny meme, but it's true. That there are a lot of people that think that way. The old guard of the GOP, the new guard, is, I wouldn't necessarily say anti-war, but they're pro-peace. And that does include through strength. And by the way, let me just say this. It is true neocons have said peace through strength for a while. They just don't mean it. They don't want peace. They want to just, spend money in all these conflicts and get us involved in places all across the world for one reason or another. It benefits them financially. They've been told lies from their donors, the defense contractors, because it keeps them in business. Now, when you look at this, you have somebody who actually got it done. He got it done in the Middle East. He got a deal done, and will that lead to a much more important deal later on? We'll see. But, it's like you have the first strikes after Trump says, hey, I'm the adult in the room, daddy's home, and I'm coming to say, you guys got to cut it out. We want peace. And as of now, there's no updates. So we will have to wait. We love saying it. We'll wait and see what happens in the Middle East. But it is true. Trump is being the adult in the room. He wants to make sure that he can get deals done. And I think over the next 4 years, there's going to be plenty of deals, and that's a very good thing. So we'll monitor that situation. We will get to the super chats in a second, but first I will have to talk about 2026 because this is in, and I don't know if it's going to change much, but they're not redrawing Wisconsin. That was a crucial thing for the Senate race, was that we're going to have to win, not the Senate race, the Supreme Court race, because we don't want to lose Wisconsin to the Democrats. We don't want to have a seat or two just flip blue, auto flip. It's going to make it harder. Now, I think Derek Van Orden could still lose. The guy underperformed Trump by like 6 on the same ballot. You're not going to have that level of working class turnout most likely. It's going to be close, but I'd say right now it's not Lenar, despite it being a Trump +7, +8 district. Maybe a toss-up. Probably if I had to pick, it would go blue. But you also have Republicans possibly redrawing Texas, redrawing Ohio. If you get 5 seats out of that ordeal and you don't lose an auto flip to the Democrats in Wisconsin, that is massive. I can't understate how important that is. I just can't do it. Because you're already, let's say you're at 220, you'd basically be operating at 225, and there still are a couple seats that you could actually flip outright, like Maine's 2nd and North Carolina's 1st. And Paul LePage is winning the polls against Jared Golden. He won this district before, even when he lost statewide in 2022. So Jared Golden's vulnerable. You have a strong candidate in Paul LePage that's running against him. That's very good, in my opinion, because Golden, he's been overhyped for a while. He almost lost last time. I think this year he could go down, especially because, you have Susan Collins basically at the top of the ticket, or at least above LePage on the ticket. And I think she's going to win handily, in my opinion. I think she'll win statewide by like 4 or 5. And that's going to have a lot of pull. And she'll win the 2nd district probably by double digits, which is huge. And Trump didn't even win it by that much. So we also have this from Scott Brown, who's the best option besides Chris Sununu. He's better than Chris Sununu by far. But when it comes to electability, I'd say he's 2nd place. He's running for Senate in New Hampshire. This is another possible flip to the Republican side. I think it's huge. He won in Massachusetts, of all states. He probably would have won the 2014 race in New Hampshire if he just wasn't in the United States Senate in Massachusetts the year before. But there's been so many people that have moved up in the past 12 years from Massachusetts to the point where it's not going to hurt Scott Brown at this stage in the game. Chris Pappas is a tough fight for him. I think it's still going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than people think. In New Hampshire, by registration continues to zoom to the right, so we'll see. But Brown's a good fit. He's a much better fit than the guy they put up last time for a state like New Hampshire back in 2022. Also, New York, Elise Stefanik, friendly to Trump, moderate track record, running for governor of New York. Most likely that is massive because you don't have to lose Mike Lawler. I think she'd be a better governor for the state than Mike Lawler, and she would be a tough fight against Kathy Hochul in the state because Kathy Hochul is extremely unpopular, even more unpopular than when she barely got by back in 2022. So you have all of this, just it's lining up to be a very, very good cycle for the Republicans so far. I mean, it is true they didn't get Kemp in Georgia, although I think they could get somebody better than Kemp in Georgia that can still win, because I think Ossoff is overrated. New York's primary on the Democrat side, there could be a ripple effect. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed. I'm not saying that it might be immediately worth it, but you never know. And we just hit our goal. By the way, thank you, Right Wing Politics. We'll get to the super chats now, though, but I did want to cover those 2026 updates as well before we got started with them. So we'll get started after a quick sip of water here. But XJ Cherokee Bear says leftist rich white women now have to wear burqa. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. This guy's far left, but I get the joke. I get the joke. Roku fan 1835 says, what do you think about Scott Brown running? Well, I think that Scott Brown is a solid candidate, as I just mentioned. I know you sent that super chat in before the stream, so but I appreciate the super chat. And he's a strong fit for New Hampshire compared to any other possible viable option. American Nerd 1776 says it's over for New York City and the big beautiful bill. Yeah, the fact that the parliamentarian is able to strike down certain parts of it, they may not have been the most consequential parts of it, but the fact that they're trying to gut it from that perspective is just awful. The parliamentarian should not have power. Nobody elected the parliamentarian. We elect the representatives, we elect the senators. Who the hell's the parliamentarian? Nobody even knows who that person is, coming along and just striking down parts of the bill. Like, that's a problem. I mean, Trump needs to put a lot of pressure on Thune to make sure that happens, or that doesn't happen, I should say, or her getting fired happens is what I meant to say. American Nerd 1776 says, could Sliwa win in a four-way race if Cuomo runs? I don't believe so. The one poll has him down at 7% in that four-way race. Now, it is true it's an early poll, a one-off poll, but I don't think people take Sliwa that seriously. And obviously, I'd much rather have him as mayor than the other options, but I think Eric Adams is the most realistic option, and I think that Ben says it well in this next super chat. Sliwa and Cuomo should drop out and endorse Adams. I agree with that at this stage in the game. It makes the most sense. Salt A for 10 says, I kind of understand why Zohran won. He ran a polished, curated campaign and ran against a quasi-incumbent perv abuser who fudged the COVID numbers. Doesn't make it right a leftist social. Well, I agree with that. I mean, he is somebody who ran a solid campaign, Trojan horse guy, tries to, polished himself well, but we understand where he stands, and it didn't help that his opponent was crazy. But the left, the bottom line is the left's base is not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as it was before. You don't have to answer as much to the South Carolina primary voters that happen to be black. And when that happens, you get a very different nominee. You haven't had a nominee that didn't win the black vote since 1988. And that was only because Jesse Jackson was running, and he didn't even win it by a ridiculous margin. Now, if they put up Pete Buttigieg, that's a big disaster waiting to happen for them, given how poorly he polls against minority voters. So if they actually get him to cross that finish line, that's awful. He's an awful candidate. You thought Kamala Harris was bad for electoral purposes. I think Pete Buttigieg is far worse. So, but the main takeaway is that you have more millennials, these, college-educated white voters. They're the meat of the Democrat base. He appeals to them. And you have a little bit of a drop-off of black support in terms of their overall core primary base. And that's not going to drive their party in a more electable position, believe it or not, because, the black electorate in the Democratic base for quite some time, they've basically been electabros. They voted for the most electable option, besides maybe the exception of 2008, but Obama was going to be able to win anyways. Whether Hillary would win by more or not was not the point. And he was the first black president. Now it's not going to matter as much if you have a black candidate running as a Democrat in a primary, even though they will enjoy, maybe more support. Biden was still winning the black vote against Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and all these other people. Steve Dow for 10 says, glad you addressed the mod situation. Let's be specific. Matt would not only put people in timeout, he would then proceed to taunt them. Hope you've reined him in. We'll see. I hope so. Because if not, I'll have to take the wrenches away. And I don't want to take the wrenches away, to be honest. It's not something that's a very good thing to do for people. But it shows that we all failed here. But we'll see. It was an off night. I'd like to just believe that it's in the past now for him and for the mod team as a whole. Sven Olsen for 5 says, Sliwa needs to drop out and endorse Adams. Republicans won New York City this way before. Even the 2022 Buffalo mayoral election won this way. Yeah, Adams could switch parties if he wins as well. It's entirely possible he could become a Republican, and then he could work with Trump in exchange for a pardon. That's how politics works. Whether he's grifting or not, I don't care, because I want good leadership, and that would be the way to get it. You basically have Trump as shadow mayor. Giblet for 10 says the Senate Parliament removed getting rid of Medicaid for illegal aliens. I'm kind of losing faith that the bill's going to... Yeah, well, that's the problem. And if they do that, then there's going to be a massive issue because that is the spending. So people will whine about spending cuts, and then they'll cheer... or the spending cuts not being enough, and then they'll cheer when the parliamentarian does this. It's ridiculous. They need to put that back in. That's the most important part of the bill and makes it pay for itself and then some. So you need John Thune to actually speak up and make sure that happens. I think there's plenty of other parts of the bill that I'd be fine with maybe putting on a shelf for a different time or whatever, but that's a big one, and you can't allow that to happen. You can't allow them to shelve that. The Videomaker 2341 for 10 says, many of my Muslim Democrat family members voted for establishment Dems in the past, voted for Zohran this past Tuesday. Insane how much charisma he has. Nice guy. Well, he's kind of like the Democrats' version of Vivek Ramaswamy in a lot of ways. He's got a name that's hard to pronounce. He goes by his first name. He, obviously similar ethnicity, similar ethnic background, not one-to-one. Different religions, of course. But they also have like that charismatic ability to kind of build a brand for themselves that's not entirely may not entirely be what they believe 100% of the time. Ability to talk in circles. So also lots of Trump Muslim voters went for Zohran from what I've heard. He reached out to them. I think a lot of that is just A, foreign policy measures, and B, like just general tribalistic voting patterns. Also for $20, thank you, the Videomaker 2341 says Zohran was born to a secular Shia father, Punjabi Hindu mother, goes to gay parades, drinks soy latte, raised as a Marxist, represents the most white progressive district in Queens. He's now he's not a jihadist. He's kind of like the only issue that he tends to be extreme on is like maybe like his support for certain Palestine things, but he's definitely not some like theocratic Muslim. He's not like, if you look at his track record, it's not like he's just trying to cover up his real beliefs or anything like that. He just tends to be a very far left guy. He tends to be pretty secular overall, kind of like a Dr. Oz Muslim in that kind of way. But yeah, he's not some Islamic fundamentalist, although he does support some of those extremists in overseas conflicts. That's true, but he's not going to have Sharia law, as so many people put it, because he wouldn't believe in that. That's kind of like a far right Islamic thing, more so than a far left Islamic thing. But Steve Dow for 10 says, strategically, should we not be rooting for the socialists to win? He'd drive more New Yorkers to Florida, help. Well, I mean, again, I think there's pros and cons. If he can be beaten, I'd say beat him. That's still happening anyways. It's still going to continue to happen. And New York is still getting redder somehow. And the country's getting redder as a result. But as for the Democrats electing this guy, like, it's still not good for New York City. I still care about the largest city in the country, what was seen as like the American dream, the beacon of American prosperity, American excellence. Like, yeah, you know, there's pros and cons to it for sure, but it is what it is. Giblet for 10 says, do you think Dems running on an anti-Israel campaign will put them back in power? No, it's not, because people that care about Israel, and oppose Israel, and like that's their personality, they do tend to be very online. And the Democrats have become the party of woke neocons, basically, so they're not winning those people either. It's like, it's not an issue that the most Americans are going to care about either way, honestly. Also, the video maker 2341 says Zohran's campaign focused on class. He avoided going too woke, like mentioning gender and pronouns. It's how he appealed to social conservatives like Muslims. Yeah, I mean, his messaging was solid enough for him to get the victory. He wasn't outwardly as woke as he may be, or his track record may be. Also, the video maker says even if Cuomo, Sliwa, Walden, etc. dropped out of the mayoral race, their names would still be on the ballot. I think there's a 7-day period for that. I could be wrong. David G for 10 says, are you ever going to stop being a sellout and pushing garbage companies and snake oil? You've lost all credibility with me. David, let me tell you this, David. You don't have to buy anything that I promote. Let's get that out of the way first. You don't have to buy everything I promote. Secondly, I don't promote organizations that are actively pushing what you call snake oil. You may not like the prices on certain supplements or whatever. Third of all, if somebody came to you and said, for X amount, promote this item, you would get on YouTube, you would create a YouTube channel that you do not even have, and you would post the video to get compensated for that. So don't give me that nonsense. I appreciate your super chat. But you want to just, these people like to come in for my head and say, oh, well, this product, this is a product placement. I'm not going to watch, skip over the ad. I put the timestamp, skip over the ad if you don't like it so much. I'm not going to make you listen to it. I mean, these are accredited companies. You don't have to buy the products if you don't like them, but this is just the way it works. You might think the products are overpriced or whatever. That's your problem. That's not my problem. Just skip over the ad, move on. I appreciate the super chat, though. I will say that. Hope you continue to watch. The video maker 2341 for 20 says it's amazing how someone like Rudy Giuliani was elected as mayor of New York. When he was first elected as a mayor in 93 as a Republican, the city was around 40% white and declined more ever since. How far the city has fallen. Well, Giuliani bought a lot of time. I mean, he had good leadership. Bloomberg was a Republican. That wasn't too long ago. Obviously, he ran as a Democrat when he ran for president in 2020, but Bloomberg was a Republican. De Blasio really had the big decline in the city as a whole. The weak on crime stuff. It's gotten worse. Adams will talk moderate. He's not really that moderate, but he might have to, appear more moderate now because the left is, going after him because of some of his rhetoric, and they're trying to weaponize certain things he's done against him, when I think a lot of it is because they just think he's kind of a problem, want to throw him under the bus. So that's the way it is. Let's see. Mike Oxard for 5. New York City soon to be San Francisco. The left will keep pushing the moderates out. Are you concerned about there being an interstate moderate Democrat refugee crisis? I'm not, because the Democrats aren't the ones leaving. They're the Republicans that are leaving. And when a place loses people, whether they're Democrat or Republican, they tend to get more Republican in many cases. I don't know what exactly it is that causes that, but it's just in the entirety of the shifts that we've seen. Maybe it's because, Hispanic voters aren't leaving and they're moving to the right. Maybe it's one thing or another. But I think a lot of it is because when a place loses industry, people wake up. Even the college-educated white suburbanites in those states like California, in many places, they didn't move to the left in 2020, or 2024. In many cases, they moved to the right. So it's a mixed bag, but I don't think there's going to be a massive crisis. I think that you might see Republicans in like the suburbs of New York leave. But I mean, that would help other states, but maybe you could make the case if you hit a wall with other groups, you might not be able to go in there and pick off a state like New York as easily. But I think that a lot of them would move to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and that makes the Electoral College a lot easier. Roku Fan 1835 says, happy 10th anniversary to the slippery slope. That refers to the Obergefell v. Hodges decisions. Yeah, what's happened since then? It took 10 years to finally reverse some of the cultural aspects about the alphabet stuff. But everybody said, if you legalize nationwide gay marriage, whether you think it's okay, you don't care, whatever, these things will happen. They will have transgender ideology mainstream, which it instantly was, especially with the whole Jenner stuff. Ironically enough, that individual is now a Republican. And then you have the whole, I guess you would say, like transgender children. It's being taught in schools all across the country. And they said it would never happen, and that it's just two people that love each other signing a contract, which they already had with civil unions. Yeah, a lot of the slippery slope happened. It is real. Because think about it, it's an industry for these people. Just like you have the civil rights industry, you have affirmative action, you have, these false narratives going on because they have to stay in power. They have to maintain the level of cultural pull that these people have. They're going to keep pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. It would make sense why there would be a slippery slope. They've been incentivized to follow the slippery slope. It's not about just protecting certain victories they get. No, there's a slippery slope. So that's been proven correct. You're right. Thank you for the super chat. Right-wing politics. This was the one that made us hit our goal for 10. It says, do you think there's a chance Pennsylvania's governorship flips in 2026? I'm going to say no, because I think that Josh Shapiro is just a little bit too not unpopular. Because if your favorability and approval is above 50 and you're an incumbent governor, you won your last election by double digits, is there a single case in the country's history where a candidate like that is lost? I don't believe so. But I will say that if his win is like a 5-point win, that's probably good news for down-ballot Republicans, and maybe you could even dare to say a moral victory depending on what happens in the state legislatures. The video maker 2341 for 5 says, even if there's a blue wave in 26, I could see Hochul losing because of how awful she is, especially with Republicans and independents. Well, I mean, it's more of a statewide election. Anyways, Videomaker 2341 says, what happened with the mods last stream wasn't here. A lot of timing out, a lot of trolling. Salt A says, this is my take on the hypothetical percentage for the general election. 35 for Zohran, 25 for Adams, 20 for Cuomo, 15 for Sliwa, 5% for Walden and others. Yeah, everyone should drop out and endorse Adams. In my opinion, it's the fastest way for this to end, because I think Zohran would beat Sliwa in a 1v1. I don't think he would beat Adams in a 1v1. He might beat Cuomo in a 1v1. The video maker says, it's sad how authentic New Yorkers like Giuliani and Adams are dying out. Younger New Yorkers are more like Zohran and batshit crazy. It's true everywhere. Brooklyn, North Brooklyn especially. Steve Dow says, David G's a socialist. Why does he begrudge you for earning ad revenue so that you're rewarded for producing content that he... Well, the thing is, I don't understand why people will... Because if I am doing an infomercial, which I'm not going to do any more of them, by the way, because I don't like doing them. That's no disrespect to anyone who I've done an infomercial with. But, it's like I do an infomercial People click on it and then they watch it and they get mad. It's like, you don't have to watch it. Just like if you see an advertisement on a website, you just hit the X button, or you have an ad blocker and you don't consume it. But you have people that like to complain about people that put a lot of videos have ads in them. You know, if you watch television, you have ads. You have ads that go on for minutes at times. It's how it works. If you don't like my ads, at least you could skip over my ads. Whereas on TV, unless you're like watching something on a DVR and you could skip through it, you could just skip through my ads. I know that the stream, now YouTube puts ads on streams. I don't like that they put ads on streams while they're, happening, but that's not up to me. As for like me doing ad reads, yeah, I'm going to continue to do ad reads. If you don't like the products, don't buy them. I mean, you're still spending money to tell me that you don't like that I'm shilling the products. It's like, okay, are these products hurting people, harming people? No, in fact, many people who actually purchase them have very positive reviews, and that's why I'm willing to promote them. So that's the way it is. No more infomercials, no more like 5-minute ad breaks. I agree. But as for the ads that I do now, like, I'm going to continue doing them because I don't see what the problem is. If people don't want to watch it, just skip over it. It's fine. And that goes for anybody. So Right Wing Politics sent 2. Thank you for that super chat. We'll go for 10 more minutes, guys. We hit our goal, so we'll look in regular chat. I did want to get a stream in midweek because of the Zohran stuff, the ceasefire, and all that. But we'll probably be live again on, I don't know, Sunday, sometime before the month ends. Mike Oxard for 5 says, prediction, Jeb will join the New York City race as the last second awkwardly say, please clap at a few campaign stops, then win. Well, maybe. Just because you said it, it's going to now happen. Even though he doesn't even live in New York City. He'll win on a write-in vote, 100% of the vote, every borough, every neighborhood. So let's see. Rudy's son should have. I think Rudy's reputation in New York City because of the stop the steal stuff. I'm not sure if that would help at this stage in the game. It might not be fair that it doesn't help, but I don't believe that his son would because Rudy's seen as they view him as like a Mike Lindell type of figure now. Whether you like him or not, I like Rudy. I thought he was a great mayor and. He's an American patriot of sorts. That's why they're trying to crack down on the guy. But New York City's New York City. Donald Trump only could win 30-some% of the vote there. You're going to need somebody that can appeal to other voters. And I don't know if Rudy's brand at this stage in the game can put together that coalition, especially when so many of these voters weren't even alive for Rudy as mayor. The video maker says Eric Adams was a lieutenant NYPD officer who responded to the World Trade Center attacks. His likely successor is associated with folks who thought 9/11 was... Yeah, could you imagine if 9/11 happened today? I mean, the discourse around it would be entirely different for the worse. It'd be insufferable. The left would say, well, what about their first gut reaction would be to protect Muslim voters from people, or to protect Muslim Americans from people maybe, giving them dirty looks once a week in public or something like that. Like that would be where their mind would go. It's just not healthy. It's like the graphs we've seen, like the how the right views what they prioritize. The left prioritizes people that are farthest from them, whereas the right does, the priority. They prioritize people closest to them, and it's like the heat map. Everyone's seen the opinion dismissed. If they're on social media enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, you might think it's. I'll find it for some stream, and we'll analyze that because I think it's important. It's why you have the left. They'll bend over backwards for illegal alien criminals who later find out that they're under investigation for some sort of sexual bizarre thing. But no, when it comes down to, I don't know, it just getting them out of our country, no, we got to protest that. Because it's if you analyze this in any other country, you'd say these people are traitorous, enemies or whatever. But when it comes down to the United States, no, it's seen as no, that's democracy for some reason. Philip Garcia for 5 says, I don't think any Staten Islander will vote for Adams unless those tolling gantries in Manhattan are taken down. At least with Zohran, we can win Albany. We'll see. Ben says, if 9/11 happened today, Zohran would blame. Well, I don't know about Zohran's take, but I know there's a lot of people who would say that, and plenty of people on the left, and that definitely transcends ethnic lines and age. Mike Oxard for 2 says, maybe Ryan Binkley can win. Don't lose hope. Did he even get a single 1% finish in a primary? I think even the Nevada caucus, he couldn't even get 1% against Trump, and it was just Trump and him. I think that's when he dropped out. Right-wing politics says, do you believe the 2020 election was redacted? Which I don't think it's against TOS anymore. But it's like, it's a tough call, but I would lean towards yes. I mean, if you look at this objectively, I would say if you have them changing the rules and then you flood the zone with these questionable ballots in high rates, yeah, I mean, like, it's just common sense would have you land the answer as a yes. Now, maybe some claims about it are exaggerated by some people. That doesn't mean that the election, it was not fair. It was definitely, I would say redacted, R-worded. I don't think it was fixed. I'll say that. And I think 2024 proved that. I don't think we have fixed elections in this country. So many people were saying that to kind of, I feel like, demoralize people. Thankfully, enough people voted anyways, so we could win. But, I think there were things we could have done differently, before the election where we could have won it. But yeah, when you change the rules like that, in many cases without the proper authorization, you're going to get a result and you're going to have a lot of questionable ballots. Now, I will say Republicans could have beaten it if they harvested their own legal ballots better, if they would have actually gotten people to vote early. And now that we're getting people to vote early. 2024, I think that was a big part of Trump's victory as well, was how many people they got to vote early. So again, I think when you have these changes, that's what it leads to. You have these ballots, they can receive them after days after the election. I think Wisconsin was in 2024 redacted, although I will say that Trump won anyways, but I think he would have won by more, and I think Eric Hovde would have won. And I think a lot of people deep down know it, whether they want to admit it or not. But when you just have these nursing homes and apartment buildings and complexes where these people harvest and they take advantage of, yeah, there's definitely shady stuff going on. I don't know how much. I think it was close either way in 20, but I do believe that in a fair objective count, you would have had a different outcome. I'll leave it at that. American Nerd 1776 says, I think the New York State Constitution says the governor can remove a mayor. So if a Republican won, they could remove Zohran. Interesting. Well, or be careful, because Hochul, if she's going to lose, if she removed Zohran and he wins and he's in there and people don't like him, that might be what saves her. Jared for 5 says, I like my water like I like my country, full of ice. It's true. Steve Dow for 5 says, the country's far better off with Trump losing 2020 and winning 2024. Yeah, I agree. You'd have Vice President Mike Pence, and you have all these people in his cabinet in the first term that were just not good. And I think it would have been better than his first term. And I think certain aspects of the country would have been better off. But because Biden did so much damage. But I don't know. I sometimes you root for radio, and when you look back at it, it's like maybe it was to an extent. Yeah, I think most people would rather have this outcome than the other outcome, so long as they're not like directly still suffering from any of Biden's policies, which a lot of people sadly are. But you can't change the past. I thought 2024 was amazing. And we will see what happens. The Videomaker 2341 says if Zohran wins, he'll win with under 60%. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, I will say when it comes down to the cultural changes we've seen in recent years, I don't know if you get that with Donald Trump winning in 2020. I don't know if you get Elon Musk buying Twitter, turning it into X. I don't think you get this massive cultural shift, at least to the same degree. I think some of it is age demographics. But I think Biden winning in the Biden era was crucial, even as awful as it was for the long run in this country. Mike Oxhart says Ryan Binkley. It's true. It's true. Many people will be too afraid to touch that topic, including myself. But no, we're just messing around. So we're about an hour in. Milwaukee 3. Yeah, Milwaukee's awful when it comes down to that. I understand that the swing states are going to have higher turnout because that's where the money's spent. I get that. But I'm not going to sit here and say that like the Milwaukee area acted normally. And when you go back and watch the New York Times, like, what do you call it? The time lapse from the election, and you see that like, oh, Eric Hovde's up by 2 points with 95% reporting. I know the later dumps are going to be more Democrat favorable because that's just how they count them. But the level of votes that they had was a little bit inflated, a little bit too high, and I think it's a major problem. So we need to keep filing lawsuits and doing what we need to do. We finally won our lawsuits, that's true. Cami Crombie for £2 says young white men are moving to the right. That's also true. That's also true. Sadly, there's a lot of white boomers that are not. They're stuck in their ways. They don't even know what they believe. They just vote the way they've always voted. Does the red hat hurt? Yeah, I think Suliwa, he's a nice guy. I think I don't know him personally, but I think that a lot of people view him as like a gimmicky figure. And if he dropped out and endorsed Eric Adams, I think that would be better than the alternative, given what I've learned over the past couple of days about the race. Milwaukee with 110%. Yeah, it is possible that precincts can have above 100% turnout legally, because if you're a same-day registration voter, that technically counts. It technically pads it. But the fact that you see that compared to the rest of the state, it's a little bit questionable. I'm not entirely sure that I can get behind all that. I think there's probably about 30 to 60K extra that was padded, and I think it was going to happen anyways, but I don't know. As for the rurals in Wisconsin, there's just too many people that are set in their ways for us to max out some of those counties. I think Wisconsin's still going to be competitive. I think Pennsylvania could be lean arm moving forward, which would be just massive for Republicans. So let's see. I think that's it. I think we're going to wrap it up, guys. It was a good stream. We definitely covered a lot. So that'll be it. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video or stream. Follow me on social media. The links are going to be all in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.